Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another installment of the Rufus Rundown. This time, we are live in studio, or at least remotely. First time I've been live on the Rufus Rundown in a while, but, wanted to get my Super Bowl picks out there and didn't feel like it'd be fair to just be posting it the morning of. So, Chris Santos has rejoined us from our previous playoff special to break down how we went through our brackets, how our brackets panned out, what we've thought of the playoffs so far in both teams' journeys here, and then obviously the big game itself and some prop bets at the end for those of you interested in that. So I welcome in Chris Santos, fresh off the Santos and Santos Sports Podcast this morning. How are we doing, Chris?
Good afternoon, Lucas. It is a pleasure to be here. Yes, coming off this morning, I had a chance to speak with WEEI's Andy Hott this morning on the Santos and Santos Podcast. You can check that out as well on New Bedford Guide. You can look it up on Paul J. Santos Facebook too. Great show this morning with Andy Hott. A lot of fun. Got a little bit of background on him, and then obviously what we thought about the Patriots, and then what we thought a little bit about the Super Bowl. But looking forward this afternoon to this show and see what the Bengals and the Rams have in store for tomorrow's big game at 6:30.
Yeah, this is one of the first ones in recent memory where I really don't have a dog in the fight. I mean, I have an attachment to New Orleans and Louisiana and LSU, more or less because I'm a Saints fan. I do like LSU and just kind of have an emotional attachment there. But realistically, if Aaron Donald goes out and wins the Super Bowl tomorrow, I really have no issue with Aaron Donald getting that and really kind of solidifying himself as maybe the greatest offensive player of all time. To add a ring to his collection of accolades really, holds him very high in that regard. Matt Stafford, not a guy that I'd have a problem winning a Super Bowl as well. Cam Akers coming off the torn Achilles. But like I said, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, I think a lot of incredibly likable players, and it's really, other than the factor of LA, where people kind of root against LA, I think it's pretty much open there to, people just want to enjoy a good game of football.
Yeah, you can look at it from both teams, whether it's Stafford playing with Detroit all those years, finally getting a great opportunity to show what he can. How about Joe Burrow coming off that injury that he had? Everybody said, would he be back? Well, guess what? He is back with a lot of swag. That's a great one, too. Never mind, obviously, what you just said about Donald could really solidify his Hall of Fame career. How about Chase, Rookie of the Year, going out there and doing what he does? Put him up there with one of the great elite wide receivers of all time. So there's a lot of different stories out there that you can look on both of these teams. And that's what makes it fun. Because there's a lot of parity in the NFL, and having these two teams in it should be great to enjoy.
Yeah, you get former defensive player of the year, you get an offensive player of the year, you're getting comeback player of the year, you're getting guys that very well could compete for an MVP in the future, more an offensive rookie of the year. So the accolades in this game, when it comes down to it, you think of teams that deserve to be here, great quarterbacks, great defenses. When you look at the accolades with an offensive player of the year, an offensive rookie of the year, comeback player of the year, former defensive player of the year, multiple time in Aaron Donald, it just does make sense that these two teams, when you look at it from on paper at least, with the talent that you have in front of you, it does just make sense. I mean, a coach of the year in Sean McVay, Zach Taylor coming off of his staff, working on that coveted Washington staff underneath the Shanahans. It just does make sense when you look at it on paper, at least, why these two teams are here.
Yeah, very interesting. You got a guy who's 36 and a guy who's 38. Think about that. Two of the youngest coaches out there in the NFL and are in the biggest game of the NFL, which is obviously the Super Bowl, compared to, let's say, Belichick, who's 69, or some of these older coaches. So give a shout out to these two young guys and players who have to, kind of fill in with the younger generation coaching style compared to the older coaching style. So give them guys a lot of props, taking in what these two young guys instill in their presence on the field to really go and look and say, hey, look what we've done with our team, and get them to the big game. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a position that demands a lot of respect from players, and players have to get up and they have to play for you, and they have to bring the energy, they have to bring the juice. Well, it's hard to demand that when you're 36, 30, when you're almost the same age as these players. So it does say a lot of how they carry themselves, what they demand of their players, and a respect matter of even being that age and still being able to command that respect and get their teams to the coveted Super Bowl with a chance to, both win their first rings. And, when you're only 36 and 38, it does provide you with a lot of time to pursue not only your first after this one, but many more if you do get your first in this one. So it does set up a pretty cool story. But first off, we'll lead it off with what our picks looked like throughout the brackets. We really didn't differ much. We pretty much stuck the same up until you called the Rams upset. I took Arizona out of that, and they put on one of the most fraudulent performances I've seen in playoff football in quite some time. And then it carries through the rest of the playoffs. You called the Rams getting there. The Bills, unfortunately, the way they go down to the Chiefs, Josh Allen doesn't even get to touch the ball in overtime. But what have you thought of the playoffs so far? And has it kind of gone away from what you thought was going to happen? I mean, obviously you had the Rams, and the Bills very well would have had a shout. I think if the Bills win that game, I think they do go on to the Super Bowl if they beat the Chiefs. But what have you thought of the playoffs so far?
The AFC, I think, has been a lot more explosive and a lot more exciting than maybe the NFC. The way those games came down, obviously, between Buffalo and Kansas City, and even Cincinnati and Tennessee at that time. And then you come back with the next one with KC at KC, and Cincinnati comes back in the second half and knocks them off. So pretty impressive to get to where they are has been the Bengals. The Rams thought it was a little easier. I thought they completely dominated Arizona. And then when they got to Tampa Bay, I thought it was theirs too. They made a couple of errors. It got Tom Brady back into the game. Obviously, it got a little closer than maybe what it could have. But I still thought it was the Rams for the taking. But I just think it was a lot tougher for Cincinnati than it was for the Rams.
Yeah, that was a Raiders team that was on a very emotional high going into the playoffs, and it goes down to the wire there. They pull that one off. Then you have to go up against the one seed. It's a team coming off a bye. I wouldn't say a completely healthy Derrick Henry, but it was Derrick Henry nonetheless, and still a team that offensively had run the ball well. Tannehill, typically doesn't make a lot of mistakes. They forced him into mistakes. They forced him to play from behind, and even while allowing 9 sacks on Joe Burrow. There's something about Joe Burrow and the charisma and the way he carries himself and some quiet confidence. His outfits aren't quiet, but he doesn't say much in terms of, he doesn't run his mouth a lot. He just has this quiet confidence, this stature. He just handles things well. There's a certain comfort about him and just this gamesmanship about him that, I don't know, kind of reminds me of Brady a little bit, although I don't like player comps. But he just does carry himself like a quarterback should, puts the weight on his shoulders, and regardless of what's happening to him, he's able to stay composed and keeps him in that Tennessee game and certainly kept him in that Kansas City game.
Yeah, well, he has the swag and the it factor, which the team gets behind, and that's all you need. So they can sit back and say, it doesn't matter how much we're down, this guy can lead us, this guy can help us get back into a game or carry a game and get them the victory. And this year, yes, he has done it. And considering what he did before, the injury that he had it then too. And so you thought maybe because of the injury, it would shy away a little bit. Not at all. He's come right back to where he has been, and it's been a very successful season for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive too. I think a lot of people would always, say with a lot of these college quarterbacks, they've never played in these big playoff games or played in that atmosphere. Well, not many of these big-time college quarterbacks that come and have success in the NFL, play in national championship games at the collegiate level. He's actually going to be the quickest one, if he's to win the Super Bowl, within a 2 to 3 year span, to win a national championship, a Heisman, and a Super Bowl, if he's able to pull off the victory Sunday. He said he's been, some of the SEC environments were louder and even more intimidating than some of the NFL environments. And, I believe that when you're playing at those big-time SEC schools. So I didn't think to him and Jamar Chase, even T. Higgins, who's played in national championships underneath Clemson, it hasn't bothered him as much. And like you said, the way that he carries himself, it rubs off. I think it comes from the coaching, too. You recall that Kansas City regular season game where, it showed lack of faith in his defense, but the guy was committed to not losing to Patrick Mahomes. He was going to win the game with his guys on the field that he wanted to be out there, and that was Joe Burrow, that was Jamar Chase, that's T. Higgins. He wanted his guys out there, and he was putting the game in their hands. Even though a field goal would have done it, you saw what Pat Mahomes did in 13 seconds against the Bills. In the long run, even with the penalties and everything, and it not really looking too clean, it was the right call then. And he has a great amount of confidence in his guys on the offensive side of the ball. And a guy like Burrow, and it's shown all the way through, and it's got him to this game. So while it was questionable then, and you can question a lot of things, there is certainly a lot of character in that locker room that has carried them a long way.
This is a very, very young team, Lucas. Even if they don't win this game, they're going to be around for a little bit. I mean, I don't have all the contract information to know where Higgins stands and Chase and Joe and all that. But this is a young core that you can build around and could be around for a good 5 to 10 years if it can all stick together. And then, put some pieces to the puzzle. They've been weak, obviously, on the offensive line. If they can get something out of that in the draft and free agency, see what Mixon does, obviously, in the backfield and what those contracts are like. This team could stick around and can compete for a little bit of time, that's for sure.
Yeah, the big thing is you have some very, very talented players still on their rookie deals, which the first-round picks like Higgins, like Chase, like Burrow, they ride out for 5 years with an option in their fourth year to pay them in the top 15 players of their position once they take that option. But while they're on the rookie deal, and especially the quarterbacks that are getting paid peanuts in comparison to their production this early on, the Herberts, the Mahomes prior to the extension, Josh Allen prior to the extension, Russell Wilson when he was a young quarterback, those are the guys where you can, really pay high-paid defensive players for 2 or 3 years prior to that contract running out. Build up an offensive line and pay them a boatload of money because you have these guys, for pennies on the dime in comparison to other players at their position, but they perform at the same level. And there's not going to be holdouts or anything because they still need to make the money off these original rookie deals before they can do such things. So you really do have a significant core you can build around, but also for the time being, prior to the time where they're going to be getting contract extensions, given they stay out of trouble and stay healthy, you could really build around them well with expensive players and not have to worry about cap trouble until it comes around where they develop into their 4th, 5th, and 6th years, where then you have to dish out the extensions. But for this period of time, you can solidify that core and draft well and really put this team in contention for the significant future, even as tough as that AFC North is.
Yeah, it's true. It's imagine how long they can look down the road and how long that these guys say, hey, I really like this organization. I really want to stay here. Or, someone else has got some big money. Maybe I'll take off and go get the big money as well. It's something that just the way they play the game, that's how it is with contracts and agents and everything. So take 1 year at a time if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. Hopefully for them it starts tomorrow, win the big one, and then see what happens in the future. But they're right where they want to be, at least for now, with a core of players that you talked about.
Yeah, again, I think much similar. I mean, they're in the bowl. They're well ahead of schedule, but they have a number 1 overall pick. It may take a little longer. I don't see the Jaguars taking a big step in their second year with Lawrence. So well ahead of schedule. I think when you have, even though you have a top quarterback like that, and you have top receivers and you have top threats, I still think well ahead of schedule. Patriots are ahead of schedule. There are a lot of teams in that AFC. That have been ahead, playoff teams that have been ahead of schedule. Some can take a step back, but I think the Bengals have to be incredibly happy with where they are, and just on top of the record, the culture that they've built there. And I think the same can be said for the Rams. I don't think Goff, Goff's not a terrible quarterback. I don't think he's a quarterback that can win you a Super Bowl, and we've seen that. But I don't think he's a terrible quarterback by any means, and I think he gets overhated. But Matt Stafford. I'm still critical of him, but they've built a pretty good culture there between McVay, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald. Stafford, and a leader at the quarterback position, and a true leader and a true character guy who has his shoulder out, goes back in to throw the pass. Has dealt with a ton of misery in Detroit, a really bad situation. He has built up a lot of this culture with the Rams and Sean McVay. It seems like, for as much as they crushed Sean McVay for as young as he was and hiring Zach Taylor, being unproven as a quarterback coach, all of it's paid out for these young guys. They've both built very good locker rooms together as young coaches, which is impressive.
I think this Ram team is a different form than Cincinnati. This is an all-in now kind of team, Lucas. I think they're going after it after they went out and obviously got Von Miller from Denver, Odell Beckham, We want to win now. This is not looking down the road. Stafford's getting up there in age. He's played a lot of years. There's a lot of things going on. They turned to McVay and said, hey, pal, we got rid of Goff. We're going to get you the guy you want. We're all in. We want to win now. So I think it's a little bit different than Cincinnati and what they see. So it'll be interesting what happens to them after this game and where they go from here after the Super Bowl with, those named players and what they can do to keep some, get rid of some, or how they're going to work at it. But for me, it's all in right now for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, they say the NFL not for long league. Well, they're there for now, but not for long with age and retirements and injuries and contract situations. All that'll be dealt with down the line. I mean, it's impressive for Sean McVay because realistically, I mean, he's a very talented head coach, but you have to think that going into these seasons, with as competitive as the NFC West is normally with the Seahawks with a healthy Russell Wilson. The Niners competing with Jimmy Garoppolo and most likely soon to compete with Trey Lance. A lot of that core stays intact and the fundamentals of the team that they're built around. In the Cardinals as well, you had 3 playoff teams out of the NFC West. You don't really think of for any of those coaches to be on the hot seat per se, but any time where any of those 4 teams in the West is competitive as it's been, where you say 2 or 3 years in a row where they wouldn't make the playoffs or where they would have first round exits, you'd have to think that seat gets pretty warm, even as talented of a head coach as McVay is, and as talented a head coach as Cliff Kingsbury is, and Shanahan is, but they will continue to have that warm seat just because of how competitive that NFC West is and how hard it is to get to the playoffs and make runs through there, considering home field advantage and everything like that. But the Rams have done it. They were a favorite early on. They added Von Miller. Down the stretch of the season, they didn't play incredibly well, which scared me and scared me off. I've been totally wrong about them, and they have absolutely deserved every bit of success they've had going along the way. Big Ric Flair fan that you are, you got to be the man. You got to beat the man, and they beat Tom Brady en route to getting to this Super Bowl, and sent Tom Brady into retirement. So to be the man, you got to beat the man, and they're in the dance.
Excuse me, they are. And you talk about Sean McVay, he just talked about, I don't think I could reach my 60s to be coaching. And so at 36, that gives him, you think about 14 years, and he's already talking that's all I'm going to do, and maybe even less than that. So, again, the time for the Rams is now. Sony Michel, Beckham Jr., and some of the other guys that you talked about, what they need to get and how much they can keep them. In a highly talented division, even Pete Carroll, being there and that coaching staff that you mentioned with Kingsbury and Shanahan and those guys, a good core. How much core can they keep and left and continue to compete under McVay, which puts more pressure on him, obviously, if he starts to lose some guys to retirement, free agency, whatever it is, and then they have to regroup and get back into it. But I think he's a good young coach. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, already has the experience. I thought that first one, he was overwhelmed going up against Bill Belichick. He looked like a kid in a candy store. He was so excited, and that he probably forgot how to coach a football game in that Super Bowl. But I think he's got the smarts this year. He's got a lot of talent around him, so they're all in. He's going to let the chips fly, and we'll see how well he does tomorrow.
So now that we've kind of gone through the playoffs, we thought the paths of the teams getting here. Obviously, we got the big game itself, 6:30 Sunday in Los Angeles. That'll be 2 years in a row where there is an actual home team in the Super Bowl, considering Tampa Bay had the advantage, being the home in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Obviously, on paper, the big thing is the offensive line struggles for Cincinnati. How impressive of a pass rush between Leonard Floyd, Von Miller, and Aaron Donald. How impressive the Rams' pass rush is. The quarterback position, both very talented players. I think Burrow on more of the hot streak right now, but Matthew Stafford's been a significantly big piece of this team and through the playoffs. Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, Jalen Ramsey versus Jamar Chase. The Bengals secondary versus a guy like Cooper Kupp. The Uzomah knee injury, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. That Odell Beckham and Odell Beckham the other way along with Cooper Kupp, and then both backfields, Joe Mixon, Sony Michel, Cam Akers. and that such, and the linebacking core kind of just, they're there. Both teams have, decent linebacking core. D-line advantage pretty much going to the Rams. But who do you have? How do you see this game going? The Simpsons, 34-31. The Simpsons are never usually wrong, but there's predictions all over the place. Like I said, both likable teams. How do you see this game going, and who do you have coming out on top?
Well, I've always been a firm believer that defense wins championships, even though when the Patriots won under Brady, they still had great defenses to do what they do, create turnovers, get 3 plays and out, get the ball back, and let Tom do his thing. They always did it well. I think this game favors the Rams. I think they win the battle of the line of scrimmage, which is extremely important. I think they put a lot of pressure on Burrow, as much as Tennessee did. But the difference being, I think Stafford and the Rams offense can sustain some kind of drive and some kind of offense that can put points up that Tannehill and Tennessee did not be able to do against Cincinnati. If they could, then they probably would have beat the Bengals. I think the Rams can do that. I think they can shut down Burrow, find a way to get to him, sack him multiple times, maybe cause some turnovers. It's a young group. Zach Taylor, big first Super Bowl for him. McVay's got some experience. They got the home field advantage. I think a lot of things going their way. I think Donald plays big. I think they come after him. Joe will still get what Joe gets and get some yardage and all that. But in the end, I think the Rams have it. They come after him. They do the right thing. And maybe Stafford doesn't have to be that great quarterback. Just maintain the game, put some points on the board, let your defense do what they've been doing all year, getting after the quarterback, stopping the run, just as much as the Bucs defense did last year when they played Kansas City. They got all over Mahomes. Brady made some interceptions, and the Bucs kept that defense just hammering KC, and they end up obviously winning the game. So I have the Rams here, Lucas. I'm going 31-17. That's what I think is going to happen. Whether they get a defensive touchdown, whether they get a special team one, a turnover, maybe a fumble and pick it up and go in, whatever it is. I think that helps them as well. I think Stafford doesn't make the big mistake, kind of just manages. McVay gets his first. That's what I'm looking at, even though I think Burrow still plays good and says, hey, they were in the game, kind of a deal. But I think at the end, the Rams outtake them, and they win by 14.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you saw with Mahomes, there's a difference between getting to the quarterback with blitzes, and there's a difference between getting to the quarterback with a 4-man pressure or 3-man pressure, depending on your front, or the dog linebacker and a 3 front. Anyways, getting there with 4 guys allows you to keep everybody else back in coverage against these talented quarterbacks. You see how these young talented quarterbacks that can move a little bit and have pocket presence against the blitz can pick up blitzes, know where to throw, know the zone to beat or the man to beat or who's in one-on-one coverage. And they're so talented at throwing the football. They fit into tight spaces, and these receivers make incredible plays. So the difference is that this Rams team is going to be able to get to him with 4 as opposed to blitzing where there's going to be some openings for him to throw to. The expectation is they're going to have success getting him with 4. You believe they're going to get to him with 4, and I believe they're going to get to him with 4. And especially considering the fact that you're most likely going to have to double team Aaron Donald all game, or at least you would assume so. But that still leaves Von Miller and Leonard Floyd off of the edge to go in there with one-on-one. Someone's going to get a one-on-one. Someone's going to get a one-on-one, and the Rams have an advantage all the way across the front in terms of one-on-ones and even double teams that can't stop Aaron Donald. So the pass rush is going to be there. And again, the forced turnovers, Jalen Ramsey. I still like Jamar Chase over Jalen Ramsey. I am enamored with what Jamar Chase has done this year. Incredible talent, and where he's going to rank among the top 10 receivers, I'm not sure, but he fits right into the discussion next year with some of the top guys in the game, especially once we get around to fantasy football. In that conversation, he is incredibly talented and is going to stay healthy because of the training that he does and that I believe in. like I said, been enamored with him and the talent that they have on that Bengals team. But if Burrow cannot get comfortable and can't get the ball off, and they're going to get to him with 4, I can't see them having, near the success. Not to mention that McVay has been there. And the other tail of the tape, too, is that if they're winning that line of scrimmage battle, they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit better and take time off the clock. If Burrow's getting sacked, they're going to be in 3rd and longs, they're going to throw the ball, and they're not going to be able to take as much time off the clock. And then the inverse is that you have Odell and Cooper Kupp to make big plays for you, but also they have a rotation in the backfield, and they have a decent enough O-line as to where I believe that they can run the ball and keep the ball in Burrow's hands. So not only can they put pressure on him, the name of the game is going to be keeping it away from him, which would most likely lead the Super Bowl score to be more of an under. And then when you have pressure on him as well, too, with a guy like Jalen Ramsey, I still like Jamar Chase over Jalen Ramsey straight up, but if they're putting an incredible amount of pressure on Burrow, a turnover is going to happen, and they're going to keep that pressure up. Again, I have the Rams winning in a closer one. I'm more on the side of 27-20, but any score up there, I expect the Rams to win and cover. The home field advantage is an entirely new one too, even though the Super Bowl is a whole different animal with ticket prices and everything. But again, you're just not having to travel, feeling comfortable in your own locker room at your own stadium. That has to be a huge plus. McVay's been here before. He's going to adapt. He's going to learn. And in the game plan that he runs with, he's going to be able to have success and stay in that. I can't say the same for Zach Taylor, as impressive as he has been, and as much as he has impressed me with his confidence and his composure, even late in those games. But, what he did in that game, he sticks to his decisions, sticks to his guns. Might not always be right. McVay's been here before, did the same thing. But now we'll be able to adapt more on the fly, and I think what he's able to adapt to throughout, and his game plan coming in terms of how the defensive line takes care of their business and how he's able to, keep Matt Stafford in the position where he doesn't have to do anything incredible, but just has to be, a solid quarterback. They're not asking him to be Tom Brady. They're not asking him to be Aaron Rodgers. They're not asking him to be, above and beyond the MVP of the league. They're just asking him to not make the big mistake that he has made in some of these games in the past, but hasn't throughout the playoffs, although that pick to Jimmy Ward would have been one. I still, that still hangs in my mind, but I do think with the way that the situation is set up, it's not going to put him in a position where he has to feel like he's doing too much. But if it does come down to that, it really is going to come down to a turnover differential and how much they can really harm Joe Burrow. Cincinnati, both kickers pretty solid, Matthew Gay and McPherson. That kid McPherson's been something else. The swagger and confidence that he has. The whole thing about when they were playing in Tennessee, about the warm-up kicks that he took and saying, well, it looks like we're going to the AFC Championship game, and then proceeded to hit the kick from 50-plus. Like I said, there's a lot of confidence in that Cincinnati locker room, but, can you maintain it throughout a Super Bowl in a place that like your coach has never been before, a lot of your players have never been before. There's only a select few that have played in national championships in similar quality. There's more experience all around on that Rams sideline, and I think all of that does compound to help them prevail in this one, 27-20.
I like that prediction. The line starts the game, and then it kind of dictates from there what you can do. If you need to double, let's say, on Chase, if I'm Cincy, I wouldn't keep him in one spot. I'd put him all around, put him in the slot, put him out wide, put him inside, do run-pass options, do some jet sweeps, try to get the ball to him more quickly than maybe getting Joe back, and hopefully it develops. If you're McVay, you may want to double him, obviously. Try to get a safety over the top to help out and see how that works. I wouldn't let him dictate the game. Not a lot of depth there. Mixon's okay. I wouldn't say he's one of the elite running backs, but, when you look at Michelle and you look at Akers, a little more depth coming out of there from the Rams. Never mind Cooper Kupp and Odell, who's actually picked up his game since he's been with the Rams compared to where he was before. With Cleveland, so he's gotten back on track too. So that gives him a little bit more. Higbee is pronounced out. He went on the IR. He will not be playing for the Rams. So they lose their starting tight end. They got another one in the back, though. He played pretty well too. He got a couple of catches in their last game against Tampa. So I don't think that will be a big deal. But it starts up front, and I just think that the defensive line and the linebackers will just play much better than Cincinnati and create a lot of things that Burrow may not like. That Kansas City really couldn't do, and I didn't think Kansas City had that great of a defense this year. I thought they were average. I didn't think they were that great, and so it gave Joe plenty of time to do what he needed to do. And then Cincinnati stepped up a little bit, obviously containing Mahomes, not letting him get away, and forcing him to make some throws and find the guys. And he wasn't able to do that in the second half. So that was a good job by halftime adjustments from Coach Taylor to really help out the Bengals get to this Super Bowl. But I don't see it in this one. I think the Rams hang on, maybe get a touchdown late to really get it into double digits. So that's what I'm going with there. And it's why they play the game. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's why they don't play the games out on paper. And I'm just hoping for like I said, I'm just really hoping for an entertaining game. The pressure is going to be there. If they're able to adapt. I mean, I really thought as well as Cincinnati played, I still think a lot of play calling from Andy Reid in that one was very questionable. I've never seen the Chiefs playing that tight. I've seen them flat out outplayed, like in the Super Bowl. The Buccaneers flat out just pressured Mahomes. But they played so tight in that second half. I believe it was a lot of the play calling. I think that Kansas City team, when they're playing back to the wall, they're just swinging, they're just throwing haymakers. There's nothing for them to lose in those shootout games. Just going after it. Fantastic. No one's beating them. Really, realistically, Josh Allen really the only team that could really give him a bid. And Joe Burrow, just absolute gunslingers when they have that mentality. But when they're playing not to lose as opposed to going out to win, I saw an entirely different team that did not belong in the same field as the Bengals in that second half. And I was astonished by it. And I think a lot of that came down to play calling, the mentality in the second half. I mean, I don't have any sources, but that's just to my belief in the way that it looked. And it was that one was really confusing.
How about the one big play before halftime, Lucas, and they couldn't score, and you go into the half kind of hanging your heads, even though you had a comfortable lead. I thought that was, one play to really turn around a game, gave Cincinnati just like this big boost of confidence coming out in the second. And then, as you said, you play not to win. You got to lead, play a little more conservative, don't want to make the big turnovers. And then next thing you know, you're 3 and out, and another team comes down and scores, and they're like, uh-oh, what's going on here? And you had some questionable play calling. And I thought Mahomes was scrambling for his life in that second half, a lot like he was when he played in the Super Bowl against Tampa, really running all over the place and couldn't get anything done. So that one big play was quite interesting at the end of the first half.
Yeah, it really, I feel like Andy Reid took Patrick Mahomes out of his game, and then he was cold in a sense of how he wants to play. And then when it came down to it, he had to go back to being that gunslinger and that playmaker to compete with Joe Burrow. And then he just couldn't get back into that groove. The defense had adapted, the defense had shifted. Through the conservative play calling, they weren't giving them the looks through the run game and the play action game that would alter what your secondary is doing because you weren't taking those shots. And then, they were in a more presentable position to defend how Mahomes wanted to play because they played right into the Bengals' hands, and they come out on top. And then, you go the other way with the Niners and the Rams, good football game. Jimmy Garoppolo obviously is a guy that can get you so close to the peak, but he just can't get you over it. But like I said, there's still some criticism there for me in terms of Stafford making that throw where Ward, one of the most unathletic looking football plays I've ever seen. I mean, those guys are professional athletes, and I don't like to crush them to make it seem like, I could do what they do. But that attempt at the interception with the angle of his hands and everything, it did look terrible. It looked awful. And it really could have totally changed the tide of that game. And what we're talking about right now in terms of, is Matt Stafford a guy that can lead you to a Super Bowl? And is Jimmy G going to get it in his second chance? It was that close. It was that much of a play away. But the Rams are here, and we'll see where it goes.
No, I agree. And I think it comes down to, from that line that I talked about, the different matchups between Rams D and Cincinnati O. Then I think the second most important comes down to Stafford. How he manages his offense doesn't make the big mistake, can lead to some scores, develop his offense. People go around him and say, "Yep, I can carry the ball. I can catch it out in the flat. I can go deep," and he makes proper throws where you saw in 2 playoff games where he made a couple mistakes. In fact, he was throwing the ball a lot shorter than he normally does, and that kind of surprises me when you're running a long route and you're underthrowing the receiver. Even if it goes over his head, you're not going to have any trouble unless there's somebody way back there. But for him, it was both times really underthrown the receiver, and as you said, none bigger than Ward, almost like a punt right there and just dropping the ball. So he has to eliminate that. So I think those are the 2 big keys. Starts with the line first, and then Stafford second for me.
Yeah, well, while he hasn't been noted on the injury report, there has been notes of him limping, and has had some problems with his foot, not his ankle as much, but toe, similar to Aaron Rodgers, which affects how he sets his feet and how he can throw the ball deep. They've talked about it on the NFL Network, and they've talked about it on ESPN. Just slight things that you don't think make a huge difference, but then, when it comes to those plays like that, those underthrows being attributed to the fact of how his feet are set and how he's transferring his weight through his feet. Of course, having the week off is a big plus as well. And another, but I mean, this defensive line is going to get after him too. As much as the Rams have an advantage, it's not going to stop Hendrickson or Sam Hubbard from getting to Stafford either. So Cincinnati can still have some success getting to Stafford, which I think they're going to have to do and match the Rams in terms of their quarterback pressure, or else they're just going to be able to control the clock and really, I think, take control of this game.
Yeah, but even when you saw the second half of that Cincinnati game, do you really think they really sacked Mahomes? I thought they did a good job in the secondary, keeping Kelsey and keeping Hill under control. Where Mahomes was kind of looking around, it's like, who am I throwing to? There's nobody open. And then by that time, finally, someone got to him, or he had to scramble and get out of the pocket. It wasn't like they were coming after him and hitting him from every direction. So that will be interesting to see if their secondary keeps up with Cooper Kupp, with OBJ, and how that works out, as they did against Kelsey and Hill.
Yeah, a lot of times I saw from I looked at the film because I have the NFL Game Pass, and I look at the All-22. A lot of times they would run the deep zones, so you'd have the safety help over the top on Tyreek Hill, and they would have a guy sticking with him wherever he went. And then they would put a linebacker on Kelsey, but through the zones, they wouldn't pass him off. That linebacker would stick with him no matter what, so he would get double-teamed through the zones as he went, and then you would also have the safety help over the top for Tyreek Hill. And like I said, I think they got caught in between. Mahomes couldn't readapt to the game that he wanted to play because, Reed really took him out of the game he wants to play and then tried to throw him back into it. Couldn't make the adjustment, and now we have the Super Bowl that we have. So you have gone on record, 31-17 Rams. I've gone on record. As much as I've thought the Bengals all along, and the Simpsons are really never wrong. The Simpsons said 34-31. As much as all that comes down, as much as I like Joe Burrow, I couldn't help but in my research and how I look at this and saying Rams 27-20. So we both have the Rams taking it and covering the spread. But we also have some prop bets, to go through here. So we got a list here to go through. Starting off with, well, actually I'll add one, the own personal. The color of the Gatorade. Now I know the odds are a little different all over the place. Personally, I'll just go with my favorite flavor in orange. I think the Gatorade's gonna be orange. What do you got for Gatorade color of this one from the winning coach?
I'll pick red.
We'll go with orange and red. So now to go off the sheet, coin toss, heads or tails. What do you got for heads or tails?
Let's flip me some tails.
I'm going tails as well. Actually, throughout high school, I went undefeated with tails never fails. Just kind of kept rocking with it, and I have an emotional attachment to tails and the coin toss now, just because for every away game we got tails. The only game that we lost the coin toss was I called tails. For whatever reason, the referee had to reflip. He never announced what was heads or tails on the coin, which apparently made it invalid. And then I proceeded to lose because it was heads the second time around. But it was tails the first time around, so I still say that I'm undefeated on high school football coin tosses. Little claim to fame there, not that it matters even the least, but that's my emotional attachment to tails. So we're both going tails for the coin toss. Now we got the national anthem, 95 seconds, over or under.
Well, that one always seems to get bigger and bigger every year. So I'm going to take the over. I think it's going to last a little bit of extra time.
I'm gonna rock with the under just because every time like the expect they continue to up their game with it. Someone's gonna have to take a step back and just give you a normal show for the national anthem, not try to overstimulate it with anything. I'm gonna go.
I don't even know who's got it this year. Do you know?
I'll have to do a quick research right now.
I don't know who's doing it.
I'm gonna have to do some quick research right now. I remember for I think I knew for a while, and I was a fan of who was doing it. I forget who was doing it. I got to look it up here. Mickey Guyton, country music star Mickey Guyton. Not quite sure who that is, but I'm gonna roll with the under. I'm gonna roll with the under. I'm gonna roll with him. Right. Considering he's not, to me personally, I don't think he's incredibly well known. I don't know the name. I'm not a big country guy, but
maybe he wants to make himself well known, so that's why he'll let.
He might go over, or it'd be more of a that's more of like a rap background for me. Maybe if he's country, he's just gonna, he's not gonna try to overstimulate it because he's country. The American flag, patriotism. He's gonna show its due respect and just keep it on the under. I'm not. What a useless print.
I wish the NFL would put a clock on it while he's doing it.
Yes.
So
just
we can actually figure out what it was when he's done.
I mean, all the sports betting and all the stuff that's being legalized, they may as well make that part of the entertainment. The Super Bowl is for entertainment at the end of the day with commercials and the game of football. It's an entertaining league. Why not buy into it just a little bit more and throw the clock on it there?
I agree with you. Put it right in the corner.
So next up we got first offensive play from scrimmage, pass or run. Again, I think this depends on the team and who's going to set to receive.
True.
I'm going to rock with the Bengals winning the coin toss with tails, and then passing for the first play of scrimmage, running a screen play to Jamar Chase. I don't know what you got going on, but
wow, that's a tough one. Sometimes you want to make sure and you want to see right from the beginning what your line can do. So I'm going to go run. I'm going to see if either team and say, let me see what my line's got today, how good they're feeling. Let's start off with a conservative run. Let's pound it and see what happens.
Fair enough. So now we got first score of the game, touchdown, field goal, or other. Of course, we've had the safeties before. I believe the Seahawks-Broncos one started off with a safety, or at least it had a safety. I'm not sure if it started with a safety. So touchdown, field goal, or other. I'm going to rock with field goal. I think it starts off with a field goal. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm with you there, too. I think both defenses maybe can slow it down a little bit and get the nerves out, get the jitters out, and someone's going to have to kick a ball first.
Yeah, I mean, both, realistically in the NFL, a lot of the first series or even the first quarter, for that matter, is scripted. So I feel like the defense is going to be, set up enough in terms of the script. They're not going to try to do anything crazy, take any big shots early. If they do, it's going to be scripted, and the defense has itself positioned well, to at least bend but not break on that opening series. So we're both rocking field goals. So now, first team to 10 points. Rams or Bengals, who do you got?
First team to 10 points. I'm going to take Cincy on this one.
So we'll come from behind action from, it very well could be 10-7. It could go touchdown, or they could go, field goal, touchdown, and the Rams could have it. So it could be field goal, Rams could get a touchdown, and the Bengals get a touchdown. I'm gonna go with the Rams, the first to 10. It very well could be 10-0 early, and throw Burrow into the fire. I'm gonna rock Rams. You can go Bengals. So now the next one is total yards of longest field goal, 47.5. So do you think anybody goes over 47.5? I got to tell you right now, that kid McPherson might be able to hit from 70 in a game like this. His confidence is incredible. I'm going to take the over. I'm not even going to double down and say that it's McPherson to do it.
I like it too, and I think both kickers can kick it, and both coaches are not afraid to throw them out there and say, hey, go get it. So, I think someone can kick in the 50s, no doubt.
So total successful field goals, 3.5, over or under. I'm going to go with, considering 27-20, I'm going to go with the over. I think the only way that score actually takes place is with a decent amount of field goals. Considering there might be a sack. They might get down to the red zone, the Bengals, and then all of a sudden a big Aaron Donald sack, 3rd and 19. Now they have to kick the field goal. I'm going to go with the over. What are you going to go with?
Well, I had 31-17, so I'm thinking 4 touchdowns from the Rams, 2 for the Bengals, and 2 field goals. So I got to go under.
Fair enough. So total touchdowns, 5.5, over or under. Well, I think right there you just said it. I think you're going to be rock. You got to rock the over. If I'm going over with the field goals, I got to go under with the touchdowns. So I'll rock the under. You'll rock the over. Total game turnovers, 2.5, over or under. I think the big key to the Rams winning this is going to be the fact that they force, maybe a late interception, but a strip sack of Burrow. And also, too, I think if the Bengals want any chance of winning this one, they're going to have to force Matthew Stafford to make mistakes. And in such case, both teams are not really relying on turnovers, but turnovers being a big part of what their game plan is going to be. I'm going to rock with the over 2.5 turnovers.
I do too. I think Stafford gives you one for free.
Here's your free play bet of your pick of your $40 of free play should go right into a Matt Stafford pick 6 at some point. This whether it's late, whether it's early, we don't know.
I just think he gives up one.
It's at least one. At least you gotta get the jitters out. Hopefully he does it early and just shakes it off.
Mm-hmm.
Get it out of the way early. If you're a Rams fan, you got the Rams in this one. So the next one up on the list. Total number of players to attempt a pass, 2.5. So do we think there's a trick play in here where somebody other than Matt Stafford or Joe Burrow throws a pass? Or I'll give you or the other option is Aaron Donald goes in there and absolutely crushes Joe Burrow, and we see a backup quarterback. That's a possibility too, considering how weak the offensive line is for the Bengals and how strong the defensive line is for the Rams. Do we see anybody more than Burrow or Stafford throwing the ball?
Can Mixon throw? Can Higgins throw? Can Chase throw?
I think Chase can. Beckham has thrown, and I think
that's what you got to look at. And I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to take the over.
And I think Cooper Kupp or Jamar Chase can do literally anything on a football field after what I've watched this year. So yeah, I think we got to go over on that. I think there's at least a bid somewhere in there for somebody to throw a pass.
I like it.
So next one up, more passing yards, Matt Stafford or Joe Burrow. I'm going to take Joe Burrow to throw more passing yards, but I also think that if Burrow throws more passing yards, if the only way the Rams really should win this one is with Stafford throwing less passing yards, them running the ball, them playing well in defense, and him being more, efficient than being overall productive in a sense. And I think that's the way the Rams are going to pull it off, so I'm going to take Burrow with the over on passing yards.
Yeah, and I'm doing it from where he has to come from behind, so they don't want to run anymore, and they got to keep throwing. And so I think he'll have more yardage.
So then the next one up, we got more rushing yards, Akers, Mixon, or another option, because obviously there's Samaje Perine, there's obviously Sony Michel as well, and I think Darrell Henderson's still a member. I think still a member of that Rams backfield. There's no injuries there with him. Who do you have with the most rushing yards in this one?
Tough to get by that front four with Donald and Miller and a couple of them other guys. I'll go the opposite. I'll take Akers. Maybe they can run behind the oldest player now in the history in the play in the Super Bowl, 36 years old. Playing,
Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah, so maybe they'll go behind him, and I think Akers will get more than Mixon.
I'm going to go with Sony Michel. I think, he broke off that big run against Arizona early in that game.
Yep.
I think that he'll get his touches. Akers will get more touches, but Sony's still going to get his, and I can see, maybe Sony breaks off a big touchdown run that really gets him the number at like 60 or 70 yards and breaks a big one to the house. I'm going to roll, I'm sure the odds of that are different, so my money is in different odds there.
Gotcha.
But I'm going to go with other for more rushing yards there. So now most receiving yards, Kupp, Chase, or other, which this is an interesting one with other because Higgins, Tyler Boyd, backfield players as well, and then obviously OBJ, who's with a lot of the focus on Cooper Kupp and then a great play caller in Sean McVay, and a great schemer in Sean McVay, has, revived his career here, and with a better quarterback as well, too, in Matt Stafford. This is an interesting one.
I'm going to go with other. I think both defensives know what Kupp and Chase bring to the table, and I think somebody else shows up and gets more yards than them.
I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp, Offensive Player of the Year, Triple Crown winner.
That's your boy. That's your boy.
He's been for a while. I love Jamar Chase, and I think he's going to have a good day. But no one's stopping Cooper Kupp this season. I don't care what you do to game plan for him. I think for the Rams to win in this one, I think Cooper Kupp has to be your guy. I think you have to continue to play the offense that you have, and to not. I mean, given they will run the ball more, I still see Cooper Kupp getting the most receiving yards in this one, and breaking a big play, 8 or 9 catches, 150 yards. That's the game you need from Cooper Kupp if you want a chance for the Rams in this one. So the next one up, first half combined score 24.5, over or under. And my total score is going to be 47, so that's kind of getting there. We're going to have a slower second half. So do you have them going over or under 24.5 in that first half?
24.5. Well, I was thinking 14-10. So I'm going to go under. That's push
territory. That line might change.
Yeah.
That line might change. A little push territory.
Good.
I'm gonna go with under, just because it very well could be a come from behind affair for the Bengals. It very well could be a 17-10, a 17-7, 14-7. It very well could be that in that first half. Teams feeling each other out, and then obviously the halftime adjustments were big for both sides. The Rams had to come from behind against the Niners, and the Bengals had to come from behind on the Chiefs. Obviously, that being an impactful factor in terms of what I think is going to happen. So maybe a slower first half and a more entertaining second half. I'm going to rock with the under as well. So the next one up is, will any scoring drive take less time than the national anthem? So I took the under 95 seconds. There is a lot of big play capability in this one. How the defense is prepared for that, I'm not sure. I'm going to roll with under the national anthem, however long it takes. I think there very well could be a first play from scrimmage bomb to a Jamar Chase, to a Cooper Kupp, or even an Odell Beckham. Like I said, even a big play from Sony Michel. There's a lot of big play capability with the perimeter threats that these teams have. I'm going to go with under the 95 seconds that we think will...
You want to read that question one more time?
So will any scoring drive take less time than the national anthem? So say the national anthem takes 90 seconds. Will there be a scoring drive quicker than that?
So let's say you had a turnover.
Right.
And you run a couple of plays and you kick a field goal.
That's a scoring drive.
That's a scoring drive, right?
And a 3 and out could take 40 seconds.
I can see it happening. I'm going with that.
So we're both going with the under there.
Yes.
So the next one, will either team score within the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter? Do we think there's an oh by the way? Do we think there's a comeback attempt? I think that with betting and everything, you want to believe that the league's at least a little bit rigged. There's something going on there.
I do.
Oh by the ways are always fun with the bettors. Who's going to cover late, and if there's a shot late. I hope there's a score in the last 2 minutes. I don't want it to be totally dull late.
I agree.
So why not rock with yes, there being a score within the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter. So now the next one, Joe Mixon, 65.5 yards. Over or under? Now, on the sheet, I don't know if that's rushing and receiving combined, or if that's just rushing. Considering he's a running back, I'm going to assume...
I think it's rushing.
Rushing.
Yeah.
I think for Cincinnati to really compete in this one, it's going to have to go over. But I see him staying under with that defensive front. And I do think for them to be trailing throughout, it's going to be more of him catching the ball rather than running it. I'm going under 65.5.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I like the same scenario you just said.
So next up, Jamar Chase, 6.5 receptions. I'm going to go over. It doesn't mean he gets a lot of yards, but they like to run screens to him. Even out of the backfield, those jet sweeps that are touch passes, those count as well. They're going to get the ball in his hands at least 10 times. Yep. I don't know how they're going to do it. I'd have to assume that at least 6 or 7 of them will be through the air. I'm going with the over.
I like it.
And you're going with the over as well.
Yes.
So the next one is Matthew Stafford, 24.5 completions, over or under. I'm going to go with under. I think if they go over, that's a problem for them if he has to throw the ball that much. I'm going to go with under. There might be a big player or two in there where it's going to help his yardage. But, 20 of, let's say he goes 21 of 33, throws for 250 yards, 100 and change or so to Cooper Kupp with 3 touchdowns. I think that wins you that ball game with only 1 interception. I think that's the type of game you're gonna want out of Matt Stafford if you want to bid in this one. So I'm gonna go with the under. What are you gonna go with?
I am too. I think they just want to manage the game with him, and unless they get really, really behind and something out of the ordinary, and then he really has to start throwing it all around. But if it goes to the game plan that I'm thinking, I think they'll stay under.
So the next one is going to be game MVP. Actually, the last one, unless you want to go with the tiebreaker for the total points scored, which we've already given our scores, so it's already out. It's already out there. Game MVP: Stafford, Burrow, or other. Who do you got taking the Super Bowl MVP trophy home? And obviously, whatever vehicle goes along with it. I'm not sure which.
I'm going to go with other. I'm going to go somebody else besides the 2 quarterbacks, whether it's Kupp, Chase, Donald. I got somebody else. I don't think it's going to be the quarterback.
I think it's going to be Aaron Donald, so I'm going to go on other. I think Aaron Donald's going to have a forced fumble, a touchdown, 3 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. I think he's going to, like I said, solidify himself as the greatest defensive player of all time, or at least to be in the conversation up there. At least of this generation, of a lot of these younger people's generations, the recency bias will play into it, But he'll be in that Lawrence Taylor conversation in the position that he plays, as dominant as he's been. And I see him taking home that Super Bowl MVP trophy as a defensive player, which I think will be really cool and really unique. But either way, other is the pick for both of us. That is our Super Bowl special, about to hit an hour on the nose. Would you look at that? I'm looking at 59:40 up there in the corner right now. So I don't think we could have done it any better. We did it with the Twitch crowd. I'm going to hope to expand, find a service to get it to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. But it's on Twitch. I'll have the recording here. Not much to edit, really. I'll just throw the intro in front of it and render it, and it'll be good to go. I'll have it posted on YouTube by the end of the day. On Facebook and everything. Everybody can check it out. And I'll have some clips on there as well, too, hopefully before the big game tomorrow, sometime tonight, in the morning, where our predictions will be out there for these picks. You can have the little snippets of the minute to 2 minutes, which I've been trying to do more and more. Hopefully everybody enjoyed. Again, I want to thank Chris Santos for joining me for this, for joining me on the playoff special. And, of course, he's had his own episode in the past, but we'll have to bring him on again for a specific episode dedicated, just to Chris and his career path, and what he does now, too, especially with the Santos and Santos Sports podcast that everybody should go check out as well. I'll try to link as much information as I can to that, in the description to the videos. But like I said, thanks again, Chris, for joining me for that and for this and for all the future episodes that I'm sure you'll be willing to be a part of.
I appreciate it. We've had some great guys like Pete Abraham, Scotty Allen. We just had Andy Hott today. Now I'm on with Lucas Ferreira and running the Rufus Rundown. This has been a great time for me. It's a great time right now to be an NFL fan. And obviously, you around tomorrow, you are more than welcome to come over to the Santos crib and watch the Super Bowl here anytime. And for those who are watching at home, enjoy the game. Hopefully it's a good one. It's a close one, and everyone has a good time watching.
I heard a report. I got some sources here saying ribs. So I'm definitely.
Yeah, I don't know.
Heard sources of some ribs that might be in the building. Which
I got to keep it quiet. I can't bring out the sources until game day.
So either way, I will be in attendance at the Santos residence again.
Beautiful.
Thanks again, Chris. I hope everybody enjoyed this show, enjoys the replay of the show once I post it out there as well. And overall, I hope everybody enjoyed this NFL season and will enjoy the Super Bowl that we have in front of us. But it's your boy Rufus, and for Chris Santos,
So
signing
back to what I was saying. Could be